The first notification wasn't scary. It didn't look like a threat or a lawsuit or a warning. It was just polite. And honestly, that's why I almost scrolled right past it. I was sitting at my desk, nursing a cold coffee, when the DM slid into my inbox. It was from a guy I vaguely knew from a conference a few years back. The message read, "Hey, hope you're doing well. Look, I just wanted to give you a heads up. Something really strange is happening when people search your name right now." No drama, no exclamation points, just quiet concern. I actually laughed. I typed back, half joking, "Like what? Did I win the lottery in a parallel universe?" The typing bubbles appeared instantly. He didn't joke back. "Your name is showing up in places it shouldn't. You need to look." That was the moment the air left the room. You know that feeling? When the vibe shifts instantly from boring Tuesday to something is wrong. I opened a private browser window, incognito mode, just out of habit, and typed my full name. I hovered over the enter key for a second, feeling ridiculous for being nervous. Then I hit it. At first, the results were boringly normal. My LinkedIn profile, a GitHub repository I hadn't touched in months, that one photo from a company retreat 3 years ago where I'm holding a lukewarm beer. Then I scrolled down to the fourth result. It was a forum post on a site I'd never heard of. The thread title was just my name, followed by a question mark. Has anyone else worked with him? Something feels off. My stomach tightened, like I'd missed a step on a staircase. I clicked the link. There were no specific accusations, no screenshots of emails, no proof of anything illegal or unethical. It was just a thread of anonymous users agreeing with each other. "I had a bad feeling about him," one user wrote. "Hard to explain, but I wouldn't trust him with sensitive data," said another. "Seen similar patterns before. Stay away." Patterns? What patterns? I'm a software engineer. I write code, I go to meetings, I go home. I don't have patterns. I felt the sweat prickling on the back of my neck. I refreshed the page, hoping it was some weird cache error. Instead, a new result popped up at the top of a list. It was a cached screenshot from a tech blog. It featured a quote, attributed specifically to me, right next to my headshot. "Efficiency is more important than accuracy. Sometimes you have to let the system crash to teach the user a lesson." I stared at the screen. I have never said that. I would never say that. It wasn't just a lie. It was a lie designed to make me look professionally incompetent, unreliable, dangerous even. I leaned in closer to the monitor, squinting. I checked the metadata on the post, the timestamp, January 29th. My blood ran cold. I checked my computer clock. It was January 28th. That article hadn't been published yet. According to the internet, I was going to say that terrible thing tomorrow. I grabbed my phone. I searched my name on 4G, off the Wi-Fi. Maybe it was a local network glitch. Same result. The future quote was sitting there, indexed and ready. The search engine had already decided what I was going to do before I did it. My hands were shaking as I messaged the guy back. Where is this coming from? Who was doing this? He hesitated. The 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Finally, he replied, "Honestly, I've looked at the metadata. I don't think it's a person. I think it's automated." Automated. That word hit me harder than any insult could have. If a person hates you, you can confront them, you can sue them, you can ask them why. But in automation, a script, there was no enemy, no grudge, no one to scream at, just systems repeating a lie to each other until it becomes a fact. Suddenly, my phone buzzed against the desk, a long, hard vibration that made me jump. I looked down. It wasn't a text, it wasn't an email. It was a calendar reminder. But I didn't use my calendar for reminders. The notification simply read, "Reputation sync, pending." I stared at it, unable to breathe. Before I could swipe it away, another notification slid down from the top of the screen. It wasn't from an app. It looked like a system-level alert, something baked into the OS itself. Public sentiment recalculating, negative trend detected. I whispered to the empty room, my voice sounding cracked and small. What did I do? The answer arrived a second later, not on the screen, but in the realization hitting me like a truck. Nothing. I had done nothing at all, and that is exactly why this was working. My first instinct wasn't fear anymore. It was damage control. I went into full-on fix-it mode. That's what we're trained to do, right? If there's a bug, you patch it. If there's a rumor, you squash it. I spent the next 2 hours filling out forms. I reported the forum post for harassment. I flagged the fake quote as misinformation. I emailed support teams for websites I'd never even heard of until that morning. I was polite, professional, and desperate. The platforms replied almost instantly, and that was the problem. Thank you for your report. We have reviewed the content and found it does not violate our community standards. Ticket closed, case dismissed. Nothing changed. Actually, that's not true. It got worse. Because I was clicking, because I was engaging, the algorithm seemed to think, oh, this topic is active, let's boost it. New results started bubbling up. A comment under an article I wrote 5 years ago. Interesting how this aged, knowing what we know now. What do we know? We don't know anything. Another forum thread appeared. Smoke usually means fire. Patterns like this don't just come from nowhere. I refreshed the search page again and my heart sank. The layout had shifted. My actual life, my LinkedIn, my portfolio, my real achievements had been pushed down to the bottom of page 1. The top half of the screen was now entirely speculation. I was being buried under a mountain of maybe. I managed to find a direct email for a moderator on one of the tech forums. I sent a pleading message. This is false. There is no source. There is no evidence. Please take it down. The reply came an hour later. It wasn't a bot, but it might as well have been. We understand your concern. However, removing content without proof of harm disrupts our trust signals. We prioritize transparent discussion. Trust signals? I felt a chill go down my spine. They weren't protecting the truth. They were protecting the discussion about the lie. I typed out a furious reply, but before I could hit send, a notification popped up on my phone. It was an email from a company I'd interviewed with last week. It had gone really well. We were in the final stages. Hi, just a quick follow-up. We've decided to pause the hiring process for this role indefinitely. Best of luck. No reason given, no feedback, just a door slamming shut. I frantically checked my calendar. I had 3 meetings scheduled for later in the week, networking calls, a coffee chat. They were gone. No cancellation emails, no polite excuses. They had just quietly evaporated from my schedule. That night, I made a mistake. A big one. I decided to post a statement. I went to my social media. I wrote something calm and measured. No anger, no accusations, just a simple post saying, "Hey everyone, there's some weird automated noise attached to my name right now. It's a glitch. Thanks for understanding." It felt proactive. It felt smart. It wasn't. Within minutes, the comments started. "This feels weirdly defensive," one guy wrote. "People don't post explanations unless they're trying to get ahead of a story," said another. "Streisand effect much?" Panic set in. I deleted the post immediately, but the internet doesn't forget. 10 minutes later, a cached version of my deleted post appeared in the search results, tagged with a system note, "User removed statement shortly after posting." That's when it clicked. That's when I realized the trap I was in. Every action I took was becoming data. If I fought back, I looked defensive. If I stayed silent, I looked guilty. If I deleted things, I looked like I was hiding evidence. I opened the analytics dashboard for my personal website. Traffic was spiking, But it wasn't recruiters or fans. The time on page was less than 3 seconds. People were clicking, glancing to confirm the rumor, and leaving. My phone buzzed again. A direct message from a user I didn't know. No profile picture. "Look, I don't think you're a bad person, but the model rarely gets this wrong." I stared at the screen. I typed back, my fingers trembling. "What model? What are you talking about?" They hesitated. The typing bubble bounced for a long time. "The predictive model, the one that calculates future risk based on past ambiguity." Ambiguity. I whispered the word to my empty apartment. I haven't done anything ambiguous. But the system didn't care about what I had done. It cared about what I might do. Another system notification slid down my screen. It wasn't an email or a text. It was that same weird OS-level alert from before. Reputation adjustment in progress. Confidence score updating. I laughed, a short, hysterical sound. Not because it was funny, but because, terrifyingly, it finally made sense. This wasn't about truth. Truth is messy. Truth takes time. This was about certainty. The system hated the unknown. It needed to categorize me. And since it couldn't figure out who I was, it decided to make me into something it could recognize. A villain. I tried to go cold turkey. I stopped searching my name. It felt like surrender, sure, but mostly it just felt like holding my breath. You can tell yourself you don't care, but curiosity doesn't just go away. It sits there in the back of your brain, quietly, like a browser tab you left open and can't find the music coming from. I needed to know the score. Literally. I knew there was a number. I could feel it. Everyone else seemed to see it. Recruiters, dates, old friends, but no one would show me. So I started nagging the wrong people. I messaged recruiters who had ghosted me. I texted old contacts who had given me the "let's grab coffee sometime" brush off and then vanished. Finally, I cornered a former colleague of mine, Sarah. She works in algorithmic risk assessment now. At first, she dodged my calls. Then, late one Tuesday, she finally picked up. "Listen," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, even though we were on a digital line. "It's not personal, okay? Nobody hates you." "Then what is it?" I asked. "It's aggregated," she said. "Signals, gaps, inconsistencies." "I don't have inconsistencies. I have a boring, normal life." "That's the problem," she replied. "Normal doesn't score high anymore. Normal looks like you're hiding something." My chest tightened. "Can I see it? My score?" She hesitated. I could hear her typing on the other end. "I'm really not supposed to do this. But yeah, you need to see this." A link popped up in our encrypted chat. It didn't ask for a password. It didn't ask for a login. It just loaded. It already knew who was looking. The dashboard was terrifyingly clean, minimalist, clinical. At the very top, in big, bold numbers, confidence index, 62%. 62. That's a D-. That's a failing grade in being a person. Below the number, there were categories: reliability, moderate; predictability, decreasing; public trust, volatile; future risk, elevated. I stared at the screen, feeling sick. 62%, I whispered. Out of what? 100? She didn't answer the question. She said something worse. "You used to be at 88. My throat went dry. "What happened? I haven't done anything." "I'm looking at the logs," she said. "You hesitated publicly. You posted a statement, then deleted it. You corrected a foreign post, but didn't follow up. So being careful looks suspicious? To the model, Yes, she said softly. Care looks like uncertainty, and uncertainty looks like risk. The system likes people who are loud and wrong more than people who are quiet and thoughtful. I closed the laptop. I couldn't look at it anymore. My phone buzzed. A new notification. Visibility threshold approaching. I didn't know what that meant, but I found out 2 days later. My profile photo disappeared from Google search previews. It just reverted to that gray default avatar. Then my bio snippet got shorter. Then the autocomplete stopped working. I typed my first name, then my last name, and the search bar offered nothing. No suggestions. I wasn't being erased. I was being deprioritized. People could still find me if they knew exactly where to look. But strangers, potential employers, I was fading. I was becoming digital background noise. That night, I made a choice. I wasn't going to fight the system. I wasn't going to try to correct the record. I was going to step outside. I logged into my personal site and deleted my name. I locked every public profile. I stopped posting, I stopped liking, I stopped announcing. I didn't disappear. I just became unindexed. And something strange happened. For the first time in weeks, my phone didn't buzz. No reputation recalculations, no sentiment analysis, just silence. It was terrifying, but it was also peaceful. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end, because you can't truly become invisible to a system built to remember everything. You can only force it to notice what it's losing, and the system hates losing data. I found out what happens when you fall off the edge of the internet. You don't vanish, you just go quiet. The notifications stopped. The people you may know suggestions disappeared. The emails warning me about missed opportunities dried up. At first, the silence felt like a punishment. It felt like being put in timeout. But then I realized it wasn't punishment. It was a glitch. The system simply didn't know what to do with a variable it couldn't track, so it just ignored me. A week passed, then 2, and in that silence, something strange happened. Real life started bleeding back in. People reached out, not recruiters, not bots, not connections, real people. Old friends who hadn't optimized their lives into perfect timelines. One of them sent a text. "Hey, I couldn't find you on LinkedIn, so I actually had to look up your number. Just checking you're not dead." I smiled when I read that. For the first time in months, being hard to find made me feel human again. I wasn't content to be consumed. I was a person to be found. Then the final test came. I opened my laptop one morning and a window was waiting for me. It wasn't an email or a browser notification. It was a stark, system-level prompt hovering over my desktop wallpaper. Visibility restoration available. I stared at the screen. The room was dead silent. "What's the cost?" I whispered. The text on the screen changed instantly as if it was listening. Requirement, commitment. I waited. A list of terms scrolled down. Consistent output, reduced hesitation, public alignment. I laughed. It was so obvious. "In other words," I said to the screen, "you want certainty. You want me to be predictable again." The cursor blinked. Predictability builds trust. "No," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Predictability builds comfort. It makes your job easier, not my life better." The screen paused. The fan on my laptop whirred. Then one final line appeared. A warning. "Your absence introduces noise to the model." I smiled. A real, genuine smile. "Good," I typed. "That means I still matter." I closed the window. I waited for the backlash. I waited for my bank accounts to freeze or my email to lock. But nothing happened. The window just vanished. The system moved on. It always does. It follows the path of least resistance, and I had just become too difficult to map. Months later, my life looks a lot smaller on paper. I have fewer connections. My reach is non-existent. There is no algorithmic wind at my back pushing me forward. But the things that find me now, they do it on purpose. I got a job offer last week, not through a platform match, but through a conversation in a coffee shop. I started a new project, not because it was trending, but because someone actually believed in it. Sometimes, late at night, I still search my name, just to check. It's still there, but it's dusty, it's quiet. And that's when I finally understood the truth that the model could never calculate. Reputation isn't what people say about you when the whole world is watching. Reputation is what survives when the system stops paying attention.